I think I ran out of memory here. Let's see what happened. Anyhow, yeah, I'm baking a cake right now and thinking about, people have suggested before that I do like a vlog or something about the recipes that I make, because I have surprisingly really taken to baking, volunteer myself to make cakes for people's birthdays at work, and if I were to have a vlog, I would call myself the Anorexic Baker. And I'm thinking to myself, like, because I think to myself all damn day long. We all do. Just some people are better at sharing it, and I want to get there. But anyhow, the reason I would call it that is because I never thought I would be in a place where I liked to bake so much, where I was in the kitchen so much. Like, the kitchen used to freak me the fuck out. I know that name would probably offend a bunch of people, and I obviously don't want to offend people, but I suffered severely. Like, I lost my teenage years to anorexia. I gave them away. I didn't realize that it was going to take it. But yeah, I've been hospitalized several times for the side effects of anorexia. My heart actually started eating at itself, because when your body goes through all the fat and all the muscle, which happens when you're starving yourself, it will start to eat at your organs. So my body was, forgive me, I'm trying to put a cake pan in here. But my body was literally like, it had nothing left to keep it going. So it started eating away at my heart. I had to go in the hospital for the first time when I was 13 years old. I remember the night before I went into the hospital, like, watching this commercial for a blender. On the commercial, they're showing how to make cake mixes and milkshakes. And, like, I just broke down crying, because I felt like I'm never going to be able to drink a milkshake again. And I really want to drink a milkshake. And it, like, broke my heart. Like, I'm 13 years old, and I cannot fathom having a milkshake. So yeah, there were some, like, really brutal times. I had my first ever psychiatric hospitalization for the anorexia, because it drove me fucking insane when I was 15. But back to when I was 13, I ended up having to stay in the hospital for, I think it was 8 days. And the whole, like, treatment process of anorexia is just fucking, it sucks. I mean, it sucks when you have any illness and you have to deal with the, what was that? And you have to deal with, like, the treatment process of an addiction. And eating disorders are an addiction. They are a compulsion. It's just a really socially acceptable one, kind of like alcoholism. They had me in bed. I was not allowed to get out of bed for anything. One, because every time I stood up, like, the act of standing up was so strenuous on my heart that I was at risk for having a heart attack at 13 years old. So I was stuck in bed for everything. Like, I mean, you need to get up and take a piss or shit. Too bad. They're going to bring a bedpan to you. So totally stripped of my dignity. I'm just sweeping. No, I'm not going to sweep it. I'm going to make my cake glaze first. But yeah. They keep you in a bed and they force you to eat, which obviously, yeah, you need to eat when you're recovering from an eating disorder, but the whole act itself was just so degrading. Like, so fucking degrading. If you didn't eat enough, you were fed like a protein shake or something, and you lost privileges. Like, I wasn't allowed to talk on the phone to anybody if I didn't eat, if I needed a nutritional supplement instead of my food. I would also lose privileges of talking on the phone if I wasn't gaining weight quick enough. And I couldn't get out of the hospital if I wasn't gaining weight. Like, I was stuck in there. So, fucking sucked. That's how they do it. And the only way I was going to get out of the hospital was gaining weight. So I had to deal with that shit for 8 days. And then afterwards, I was mandated to go into a treatment center. And they tried to do this whole thing called the Maudsley method, where your parents are in charge of getting weight back on you. is apparently your parents, you know, they're fed you as a child, and it's supposed to reignite that spark of trust. Well, it didn't. It tore my fucking house apart. Like, my parents, we're not, and I don't think any parent is equipped to deal with the demon that is in an eating disorder or an addiction. That's like, you know, a doctor telling a heroin addict's parents, like, okay, you have to keep them from going out and getting fixes and finding ways to get money. Like, it's nearly impossible. We got in fist fights. Like, you know, I wasn't a quote unquote delinquent teen outwardly. I was pretty reserved and honestly too inward. I had a very hard time fitting in socially. A way I like to describe it. Oh shit. Oh, sorry. Whoop. Okay, we just had a little bit of a mess in the microwave. I feel like that was kind of symbolic though. But the way that I like to describe it is the day that everybody figured out what box they went into, I never got an assignment. It was like the box assigners forgot about Juliet. So, yeah. I back to the point, was very inward, but during this process, like, me and my mother got in fist fights. I got my first ever black eye from my mother. It wasn't like an abusive thing. She was defending herself, and I'm sure that makes me sound like an asshole, but I didn't want to take the medication they were making me take, and I didn't. I was like, dude, this is my body. Y'all are taking away the agency that I have over my physical body. So I was very, very volatile. And we had to drive up because there were no treatment centers that took my insurance, of course. Good old insurance in the U.S. We had to drive, like 3 hours every day to get to this treatment center where I would be from 9 to 5. It was a job. And same deal, like I lost privileges at my house if I didn't gain enough weight or eat. So at this point, I'm taken out of school. I'm not even allowed to, like, take walks. I'm taken out of all my activities. I couldn't talk on the phone if I didn't gain enough weight. That was kind of, like, my teenage years in a nutshell, because I went, surprisingly, that didn't work. I went in and out of that same treatment center with a couple of psychiatric hospitalizations in between. My first ever psychiatric hospitalization was when I was 15. I had trained tirelessly for a dance competition. There was a shot at me winning it. It was like the regional dance competition. And I made it through the first round. You know, they have all the dancers come out. These are all the people who've qualified and placed high enough in regular competitions. So you go out for your main round. And if you make it through the main round, they call you back to do the next round. Made it to the next round. Did not place nearly as high as I was hoping, however. And I got home and it was like, well, what am I here for? I thought that was my purpose. I thought I found that box. And I didn't. It wasn't the champion dancer. So I took like a whole fucking bottle of ibuprofen. A whole bottle. And then I got scared, like any person would. I didn't want to live, but I was like, dude, I don't think I want to go out this way. Told my parents, and of course, you know, we're going to go to the psych ward because that's what our society is taught to do. Oh, this person's sick. They're doing this. We're going to lock them up so they can't do it anymore. And granted, I do not have a better answer. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I would have done differently. I don't know what we can do differently. I just know that does not work, really. Or not always. The thing that has made a difference, because that happened over and over and over again until I was 19 years old. And I started college, lived in the dorm. Oh, I made it through the dorm for, I think, a month and a half. And again, had the heart start eating itself thing, because now I am not living with my parents. I can buy as many diuretics as I want. I'm of age. I don't have to steal them from the store anymore. I can skip class and go to the gym for 6 hours a day, and no one is going to stop me or take away privileges. It was a fucking disaster. It was a fucking disaster. So, college did not last very long. Ended up back in the same hospital. And this time, lo and behold, they said, okay, you're not going home. You're gonna go to a treatment center. Oh, fuck. Treatment centers for eating disorders. You are locked up. You cannot leave. They will call the cops on you if you leave, because you were considered a threat to yourself. I was stuck here for 3 fucking months of the same shit. Except now I'm not even home. I'm not even with my family. I have these people that I don't know who are in charge of my health and everything I do, watching me go to the bathroom, and it sucked. And the way that they got weighed on you there, they want you to get weighed on as fast as you can. Which, why doesn't that seem good? Like, you're skinny as fuck. Of course you need to gain weight, and the quicker the better. The more the better. That's our society's MO. It's fucking traumatic. Let's check on this cake. Ooh. Okay, so we're gonna take a break from sharing the past gloom and doom. And this. I don't think it's done yet, but this is what we're working on here. Yum. I gotta do the toothpick test. Let's see here. Not quite. We got a little bit of mix up. I'm gonna do 3 minutes. Once this raspberry compote, sounds so fancy, but all it is melted raspberries. Once the raspberry compote is complete, I think it'll be done. But yeah, this place, again, I don't know if I would have had a better solution, but it was super, super rough and traumatic. Because you're not allowed to go home until you get to a certain weight. You're not allowed to talk on the phone if you don't eat what they feed you, or quickly enough. And you had to sit at the table and eat what's being served. Doesn't matter if you didn't like it. Well, if you don't like it, you're going to get a nutritional supplement, and you're probably not going to like it, and you're going to lose a privilege. So I was taught to go against the signals of my body and just kind of suck it up and learn to not listen to these things that are our bodies that store information. I made it out of the treatment center. Woohoo, I was finally at a healthy weight for the first time since I was like probably 7 years old. I actually was almost kind of living. Do I have sugar left? Uh-oh, I think I'm all out of sugar. Oh well. We'll live. It's probably sweet enough. Put a little bit of powdered sugar in here. But I got to go back home, and the grand plans of, oh yeah, Julia's gonna go back to college, and get a job, and all that fun junk lasted for a month at home. And then I started eating, like really eating. I remember the first time I did it, like they give you this meal plan and you're supposed to stick to it. And I ended up eating a pint of ice cream over top of this meal plan. And it was like I couldn't stop freaking the fuck out. Next, I was so hungry that I started eating a protein bar, and I ate a whole box of protein bars. And then this became a pattern. And then I was sneaking food. Like, I told my mom that she wanted to help me, so she tried to hide our sweets in the house, and I was going through boxes of cereal, boxes of Pop-Tarts, the whole thing of Nutella, jars of peanut butter. And it was so scary because it was like, whoa, this is what I was most afraid of with eating, and here it is, and I can't I can't seem to stop it. And that went on for months. And there was like nothing I could do for it. I couldn't even make it to class because I would stop at McDonald's on the way to class and buy, I remember they had these like little birthday cake flavor apple pies. I'd buy one of those, eat it. I'd buy a milkshake. I would get some chicken nuggets and an order of fries and eat through it. And then I would like feel so sick afterwards and so sleepy, I couldn't make it to school and I would just pass out. So I had to drop out of college again, and I was just basically bedbound again, except this time I would sneak out of my house to get more food and binge on it. I got my period for the first time after all this when I was 19 years old. So you can imagine there were a lot of developmental things that didn't take place in me that like most teenagers have. Like I never, I didn't have a boyfriend throughout high school. I didn't even have like a sex drive. I remember this one time I went on one date during high school. This guy asked me out and we went to see a movie after and got dinner at like Chili's or some shit or wherever, typical high school date type of deal. And we went back to his house after, and I couldn't understand, like, why are we going back to this guy's house? Like, I thought you just go out and then you come home. And he like started making out with me, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why would anybody want to do this? And I drove home. But now I'm 19 and like all this shit's happening, and I just started making really bad choices. I had went from, I'm not gonna give you numbers here, but I gained 40 pounds that summer. Okay, so I did give you a number, but I'm not gonna give you numbers of like where I started, where I ended. I gained 40 pounds in one summer. 3 months. And it didn't stop. I ended up over the next few months gaining 80 pounds in 6 months. I was getting 10 pounds a month. They put me back in the treatment center. This time it was kind of helpful because it was more about like people having me not do something rather than people forcing me to do something. I wanted to get better this time because it was like, whoa, this really sucks. I don't like being out of control in this way, even though the eating disorder was an out of control thing too. But it helped a little bit that time. And what also helped was I was away from my family. I started realizing like, wow, there's all this music that I like and all these things that I enjoy doing and that I didn't realize before. So I didn't want to go back home when it was time to go back home. The treatment center I went to, again, I'm not going to give names because it's just everybody's experience is different and I don't want to bash this place for any reason, but it was in North Carolina. I am from Ohio initially, and I just had this feeling like, dude, I need to stay in North Carolina. But of course my parents, oh, are you going to afford this? You don't have a job. You don't have a plan. It's like, well, I don't have a plan in Ohio either. Just the shit that you guys tell me I should be doing. Like any parent. So I went home and basically just did the whole, like, I'm gonna rebel against my parents and fight them and go out and get drunk and shit, and got my first boyfriend ever. I was, oh my god, I was such a shitty girlfriend because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't love myself. I didn't know how to love somebody else. That lasted like almost a year, but it was a really good learning experience, and I'm happy the guy now is a sweetheart. He has his own family and stuff. Let me taste this raspberry real quick, make sure it's good. Let's see how. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, that is yummy. So yeah, we dated, broke up, and then this other guy reached out to me, and because basically I was cheating on the first boyfriend I ever had, like left and right. As I was not used to people being attracted to me. I never thought I was attractive, and now all of a sudden, like, it was horrible, but oh my gosh, if I will let people do this to me, they will want to do it to me. Not a good mindset to have, but I'm sure if you're listening with compassion, you can kind of understand how I would have gotten to that place in my thinking. Anyway, broke up with that. Well, he broke up with me, thank God. Poor dude. I mean, it was just not a good situation. He broke up with me. Okay, oven is going off. And I met this other guy, and he was like the epitome of everything that my parents hated. Like, the first thing he ever said to me, because we were talking on Facebook, back when it was Facebook before Meta, and don't mind the clanging and banging, we're going to laundry folding mode. And I was just like, well, maybe we could exchange phone numbers, like meet up sometime. And he told me, well, I would, but I don't have a phone anymore. I was at a music festival and got this vision that I needed to detach from all my material possessions. So I just left my phone there, and I'm like, oh, my heart is throbbing. This is exactly what my parents would dread. We ended up dating, and that was didn't do the best things in the relationship by any means. There were just a lot of careless and irresponsible behaviors that obviously had some damage in the long run. But the best thing that ever happened to me in that relationship was I discovered LSD. And I will never forget my first trip, like pretty much anybody else who's ever done it. I am not supporting, condoning, recommending drug use. I am just sharing that it was very helpful in breaking out of myself in a way that was not escapism. I took the acid. I was not prepared for it by any means. Not in a great setting either. And I ended up in hell. Like my first ever trip. And I am literally... It's this gray cinder block hole where I can see everybody, but nobody can see me. And I'm calling, please, please get me out of here, get me out of here. No one can hear me. I can't come up to the world. And the guy I was dating, he somehow saw down into hell and pulled me out. And I kept on falling back in there throughout the trip. But I would see these waves. And there was like a light green and pink set of waves. And there was a dark, murky brown set of waves. So pink and green waves were above the murky brown waves. And I started noticing that when I would focus on the murky brown waves, I would be back in hell. But if I could remember that there were also light green and pink waves and look at those instead, I would get into heaven. And it took me, and it's still taking me, a very long time to like integrate that into my subconscious. But that's what got me through that trip. And by the end I was like, all right, let's do this again. And of course, like most human beings, it's like, oh, this is good, let me have as much as I can get. I tripped a lot that year. Probably could have been way more effective if I didn't do it so excessively. But it just got out of hand. It did not end well. The guy that I was dating actually ended up, sadly, like, he developed, maybe not developed, it might have been in him, but he, to this day, is diagnosed with schizophrenia and, like, can't work. He's on disability. It got really bad. We did not stay together because he couldn't stay away from drugs. But after I started tripping on acid, I just kind of like, there were days where I wasn't really hungry, so I wouldn't eat. And there were days where I was like, oh wow, I'm around this group of people and we're eating, and I guess it's mealtime, I'm gonna eat. And I kind of stopped focusing on my weight. I started like drawing and again finding music that I would have never listened to otherwise, and kind of came into a remission like period from my eating disorder. And I was actually at like a normal weight for, gosh, almost a year. It did not last because of other things that I don't think are really related to what I'm talking about. I don't really even know what I'm talking about other than my experience, just for the sake of one day I might want to share it with somebody. And this is a lot to share in just a conversation. But I feel like there needs to be a different mechanism for treating eating disorders. Putting people in residential homes and taking away privileges based on how they eat and how their weight is, because it's like, you know, you're already losing enough having an eating disorder. Like, I lost my adolescence. I'm not going to get that time back. I tried to in my 20s, and it just, like, sucked and was really damaging to a lot of people, myself, of course, included. But, like, you're already going through enough. You're already losing enough having an addiction. I wish that it was taught to feel the experience. That embodiment was more so emphasized. In a lot of the places I was in, it was like, we're not talking about our bodies, you know. Don't talk about the food. Don't talk about your body. But you're supposed to focus on gaining weight in your body. And totally contradictory. So yeah, we're gonna fast forward about 10 years. Do I still struggle? Yeah, I do. More of my thoughts than I would like to have are focused on food. And the older I've gotten, I've started to see this is like my brand of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I still have issues with that. I was able to conceive 2 children, and I ended up years after my first pregnancy actually having a child, and that's been like the greatest thing. Pure 100% amazing grace. And yeah, that's where I am. And I just pray for all the people that are in treatment centers right now, or that can't get treatment, that they can tap into a part of themselves that is not painful to be in. The light green and pink waves that we all have in our lives that sometimes just get so muddled and painfully hard to see. That's all for now. God bless.